At this time, there are many ways for startups to raise funds from angel investor and from traditional venture capitalists to crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter or Republic. So could you tell us a little bit some pros and cons of these fundraising ways?
So I put together a very short presentation to quickly walk everyone through options and an overview of startup fundraising. When it comes to founder perspective or investor perspective, that's when we can have a little bit more of a dialogue. But why don't we lay that foundation first on the various optionalities? First and foremost, when it comes to startup fundraising, it's highly specific on the country. Obviously, much of my experience has been in the US. But I just want to highlight a few stats. Well, first of all, this is like the number of businesses being launched every single month. We're talking about 500,000 launching every single month just in the US. Now, know that the vast majority of startup fundraising even in the US, come from the network of friends and family of the founder. And a lot of major corporations started out with a relatively modest amount. You know, I don't know if you guys have heard of Hewlett Packard and Whole Foods and HP. These companies started out with like $10, $20, $50,000 to get themselves going. So the notion of like you have to raise $1 million to launch your business is strictly not true. But know that the main capital to launch, even in the United States, is still predominantly coming from friends and family. So why don't we just like quickly discuss all the different forms and optionalities. Stephen mentioned two type of basically platform. I want to address them first because they typically don't fit in the framework of investing. Stephen mentioned a platform called Kickstarter and Indiegogo. There are a few more, GoFundMe, and I'm sure in Vietnam there are some similar platforms. These aren't really investing, right? So these are basically platforms whereby you go on to sell your products early and tell people that, hey, I'm about to manufacture produce a cup and therefore can you guys, this is going to be so special, buy early, put in, you know, $5, $10, I'm going to send you a product. That's not investing. That's basically just selling product. And of course there's a different side of like, hey, give me money for free, go fund me, because what I'm doing is so good for the world and so is philanthropy. Neither one of those fit in the framework of investing. Investing meaning when an investor puts in some money into your business, that he or she is expecting to get something back. So I just want to clarify that the word of investing versus just selling products online, okay? Within the world of investing and loosely define where the lines differentiate between pre-seed and seed versus seed and Series A obviously varies country to country. Not only that, it varies in various states. The seed line in New York versus Silicon Valley is already different, much less between New York and Vietnam or New York and the United Kingdom or Ecuador. But loosely defined, you have friends and families, meaning people go out there and just asking your friends and family of wealth, right? And I think even in the US as well as in countries like Vietnam, support from your parents or from your network is very common. Going beyond that, you have these things like pitch competitions. I think VietChallenge falls under the ambit of pitch competition and accelerators and incubators. Some of them do offer capital, and I know that the VietChallenge competition in the US do offer capital funding. The angels and syndicates, this exists a little bit more in countries like Israel, the US, the UK, but I do know that even in Vietnam, there are emerging angels network, and I know Chị Thu Vân, maybe outside of Saigon, have an angels network that she basically wealthy individuals individuals, but they fund their investment together and they invest into a company. They're not quite venture funds because they don't have the credibility, the brand, or the ability to help you in future rounds, but they are an incredible source of capital early on. Then you have, the debt financing. Banks provide funding from time to time as well. And then, of course, you have investment platforms like Republic, which I can explain later. This is not about a pitch about Republic. This is just about giving you guys a whole, a view of the entire landscape. Venture capital. And that's where outside of the US is still quite difficult or weak because the number of VCs out there. But raising venture capital, sometimes they invest pre-seed. That's not common. I think that when it comes to startups out of countries outside of the US, or quite frankly, even outside of Silicon Valley, there got to be some traction in most cases in order to get venture capital interest. How to pitch a VC is in and by itself an art. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time, and that's where I'm going to dive in a little bit more. But know that venture capital is not the only options, and that venture capital can come in much later. So you have all of these options to make sure that your startup get the traction that it needs. And of course, you should pay a lens on VC if your business is VC backable. Not all businesses are VC backable, but if yours is, pay a lens on it, and then eventually, but do it smartly, because otherwise you're going to get so discouraged, and the time and effort it takes to pitch VCs, if you do it incorrectly, it will take up all of your bandwidth, and that's not worthwhile. Platforms like Republic is meant to bring in capital from the crowd. That is, the angels and syndicate are typically millionaires. We see a world whereby everyday people, even students, investing $10 or $20, but tens and thousands of them putting money in. So in a way, you kind of like bring your entire customer base or community to invest into your business. Is a really powerful marketing capability, and it's going to be increasingly a powerful source of capital. In the UK, which is the business model for crowd investing, has been around for almost 10 years. And by now they represent 20% of venture financing into early stage companies. So it's quite significant. I'm going to quickly run through very fast the various options here. Bootstrapping, you have a lot of control. Obviously, bootstrapping meaning you spending money from your own saving, and therefore you have 100% control over that entire process. Friends and families, you still have control because they, they're your friends. So they're not gonna like jump in and tell you what to do with your business. But the thing is, they're gonna come in directly. So you have a lot of investor in your cap table, and you're obviously gonna have a lot of questions on text, on email. How's your business doing? When am I gonna get your money back? A lot of uninformed questions that you have to deal with. The accelerators like VietChallenge and the incubator is an incredible value, as you guys already know. You're part of VietChallenge, the education, the mentorship, in some cases financing, and obviously the network of partners. We have the conversation today because VietChallenge have that partnership with Republic. But in the US, there's some I think there must be at least 1,000 accelerators in the United States. There are really only 3 or 4 that are worthwhile for the most part. Outside of the top 3 or 4, I think unless there's a very special niche, typically it's not worth your time. If there's an accelerator that requires you to pay a couple $1,000s in the US to be a part of, and I got a lot of these questions all the time, be very careful. If they ask you to pay that much to be a part of their accelerator, rather than them giving you money or investing money in the US, oftentimes it's not a very credible one. I think you guys know 500 Startups is a very credible accelerator with a presence in Vietnam. There's a lot of corporations like Nike, Samsung, Apple have corporate venture arms. So if your business, if your product is related or beneficial to a certain type of corporations, take a look to see if they have a venture arm. And if they do, they may very well invest in you. To give you an example, if you're developing a phone LCD screen, but like the next generation, you should check out Samsung Venture. It's a very powerful corporate VC, and that's probably an easier sale than chasing, some other VC. Venture capital, and this is probably a lot of you have questions on. This is where you get the advantage of the network, the know-how, obviously a bigger check, but know that the sales cycle is an intense effort, and that they will take control over your management of the company. And yeah, they at times you're run into a board that may not have your best interest in mind, but obviously VC can basically make a unicorn. There aren't too many unicorns or multi-billion-dollar businesses out there without venture capital financing. Now, not all businesses should be a unicorn. If you build a $5 million business and it's thriving and you love doing it and you hire 20 people and work and build this company, do it. Like, the end goal is not to be a unicorn. The end goal is to build a value add business of whatever size. Investment platform like Republic, I can take questions about that later on, but the whole point of a platform is that it brings you marketing value. Again, your customer investing in your business and talking about it, endlessly. That's how a company, particularly a B2C company, can really, really grow. It's just essentially turning your customers into brand ambassadors. So that's pretty much is an overview of the overall fundraising options in the US, which is obviously the most mature entrepreneurship ecosystem. So to varying extent, these options do exist in other countries as well, but are less mature, and it really depends on where.